I've played tons of video games in my life, and one thing I enjoy doing is talking about aspects of video gaming history that some other people might ignore, such as cultural responses to the releases of games. Violence, sexual themes, stuff like that is commonplace now, but back in the day, society was really different. And that's the topic of today's episode. This is the third episode in a series dedicated to controversies in video gaming history. Let's begin. We're starting off our list with a game that I actually love, Phantasmagoria, an extremely high-budget FMV point-and-click adventure game from one of my favorite developers, Sierra Online. I'm sure many of you know their games, stuff like Quest for Glory, Police Quest, Dr. Brain if you cared about the educational stuff. They were everywhere, and their games always impressed me. And as an adult going back and playing the games I missed, I'm still impressed. But Phantasmagoria as a game was the definition of pushing the boundaries in what was acceptable at the time for video games. That's what the mid-90s was all about. The game is simple though. You play as a novelist, Adrienne Delaney, who moves into a manor with her husband, Don, in a very quiet town with your cat in tow. Over the course of the game, we realize that the manor was once owned by a really fucked up occult practitioner who murdered all of his wives in very disgusting ways, and of course we see it. That violence was one of the major controversies. But perhaps the worst one involves a scene where a possessed Don sexually assaults Adrienne. I'm not going to show it here because that's not the point of the video, but just know that it does happen. That scene alone resulted in some major retailers not selling the game, and in the case of Australia, they straight up banned it. Copter seems pretty innocent, right? It is. It's a simple game, a flight simulator if you want to consider it so. We just fly a helicopter. It's one of the early sim line of games from Maxis, like the 12th. The first was obviously SimCity, then SimEarth, you get the idea. This predates The Sims, which was basically their flagship franchise once it became the highest selling PC game for a long time. And that was their thing, anything could be simulated, and if they could simulate it, they would. And Copter is very much evidence of that. In Copter, we do tons of odd jobs, at least if we do the career mode. We can handle traffic jams, catch criminals, fight fires. There's like 8 different jobs, but people loved it. Now the controversy comes from an Easter egg that Jacques Servin, one of the developers, placed inside the game. Basically how it worked was that if the game recognized a certain date, these half-nude shirtless men would spawn and start making out. Servin was openly gay, there's nothing wrong with that, and he felt like that was the best way to give Maxis the middle finger for what he perceived as horrible working conditions. Fine, whatever. Here's the problem. His code, it wasn't limited to just a few days. These characters would pop up all the time, in droves. All because a random number generator went apeshit. And considering that the nipples of the men are programmed to be vehicle headlights, you can see them clear across the map. There was this massive orgy of half-naked dudes making out. It's pissed off a lot of activist groups, and it resulted in Servin being fired. I don't even really need to get into why this one's on the list. Duke Nukem 3D is a grimy, scuzzy ass game. It's always been that way. Duke was the most American you could imagine, cleaning his gun while eating McDonald's for breakfast kind of American. And it's funny because that identity really wasn't there until Duke 3D. If you played the earlier Duke Nukem games, you already know he was a silent protagonist and his games were the norm for the era. Side-scrolling bleeps and bloops shooter from Apogee, the same shit they pumped out for years. Biomenace, Monster Bash, Alien Carnage, they were literally all the same, but for whatever reason, out of everything that Apogee or 3D Realms did, this is the one that people got mad at, and for good reason. There were misogynistic jokes, nude ladies with their titties out in go-go girl cages, sexual themes, but they were more so innuendos, and it ultimately culminated to the idea that nobody liked Duke like that. They didn't get the lifestyle and the attitude that he portrayed. But they were okay with Andrew Dice Clay walking around saying the shit that he did, but God forbid it's in a video game, because those are for children. For my younger audience, you might be confused. Why is Lara Croft on here? And to that, I stand proudly in front of my computer, reading this script I meticulously crafted, and speak proudly into the microphone, surrounded by thousands of hormonal teens who now have become disgruntled gamers, and say the simple word that describes exactly why this game is controversial. Boobs. Breasts, fun bags, titties, the Wonder Twins, Giggle Globes, the committee, fun pillows, the girls, lady lumps. Our whole obsession with this shithole game that Lara Croft found herself in was wishful thinking that maybe, just maybe, we could see her boobs. There were rumors, there were supposed source code images that people hoarded. It was in magazines, it was a hot topic item. The existence of the potential for Nude Raider was so popular that core design would go out of their way to make you believe that it existed, which kept the dreamers dreaming and the gooners gooning. And then one day, it was released. An unlicensed Nude Raider patch, so you could see her little pyramid titties with a spot of a nipple and beat your meat to no end to a 32-bit woman who controls like a fucking forklift with busted hydraulic lines. I hope you're happy. I've never played Battlecruiser 3000 AD, but I know people who have, and to be honest, it's been kind of a mixed bag. Some people say it's interesting and that I should check it out, others say it's a pile of goat shit that was left incomplete. What do you think? This game was released in 1996, I was too young to play it, maybe some of you remember it. Feel free to let the community know down in the comments section below. By the way, I noticed that only 33.9% of the people who watch my videos are subscribed. I'd like to make that number a little bit higher, and I'm always seeking to expand our community. But Battlecruiser 3000 AD, it is an odd one because it has a very specific controversy tied to it, and that is the people who made this game and even the publishers straight up lied about the capabilities of the game. They told consumers and even advertised that Battlecruiser 3000 AD used neural networks to perform AI tasks, but that technology, it was definitely not available. Critics were skeptical, and sure enough, it was a lie. The game was also incredibly broken upon release. They had some internal issues with contracts not being paid out, and in the UK they decided to promote the game with Joanne Guest blocking her Vagugu with a copy of the game. I know it's a lot to take in, so take a deep breath, allow the blood to redistribute. And speaking of blood, we got another shooter, a build engine game, much like Duke 3D, Tech War, which is fucking trash by the way, Witch Haven, Power Slave, Shadow Warrior. If you've played a game on the build engine, you know it has a way of presenting itself. Blood is a great game, but much like Doom, it was plagued with being associated with violence, which in the 90s, that was kind of a big deal. This is post Dungeons and Dragons satanic panic, and now parents needed something else to be mad at. And as a parent, I can relate. I get oddly mad at insignificant things like crushed goldfish crackers in my carpet. I hate that shit. But Blood was a solid game, people love it, and I'm sure I would love it as well, but I haven't played it. I've seen my peers play it, and it appears to be a decent first-person shooter in a generation where the FPS genre was really starting to pop off. But the levels of violence that were in the game and a questionable advertisement caused the public to look down upon it. For anyone who's curious, the advertisement was a guy lying in a bathtub that was filled with blood, and I say that loosely because I'm pretty sure that it's just red food coloring, but what do I know? I'm just a boy. There was a point in time where racing games were just stagnating, and for whatever reason, people thought it would be exhilarating if they put people in the road for you to run over. You know what I'm talking about? Carmageddon obviously did it, but Quarantine did it as well. Grand Theft Auto, anyone? I mean, Grand Theft Auto isn't really a racing game, and to be honest, neither is Carmageddon. One of my fellow YouTube peers recently covered this game. His name is Jason Graves, and he fucking rocks. So if you're someone who enjoys my videos, I do recommend checking him out if you haven't already. He commits fully to his projects, and it's always a treat to see. But returning to the game, Carmageddon tries to bill itself as a racing game, but in actuality, it's more like a shitty destruction derby game. The one that comes to mind is Demolition Racer, or Demolition Racer No Exit if you have the Dreamcast version. The principle of the game is that you could race, but they really want you to take out your opponents. Carmageddon is the same, but with the option to run people over. That's where the game got its infamous reputation. However, after the PC release, and in some cases the PC release in foreign countries, they turned the people into zombies because apparently once people lose the agency and free will of conscious existence, it's a green light to run them over. Time to get a little bit more civil, and by civil, I mean generic racing. We talked about death, about violence, and don't worry, more of that will come, but for right now, we're talking about a quiet racing simulator known as Formula 1 97, developed by Bizarre Creations, the same people who made the Killing Game show for folks who grew up on the Amiga, and later Project Gotham Racing if you're from my generation. Now the reason why the game was so controversial, if we can even say that, is because FIA, the whole swinging dick organization controlling Formula 1 races, didn't like having their logo on the box. This resulted in the game being yanked from shelves 6 weeks after it got released. Bear in mind, this game was published by Psygnosis. They weren't some small grassroots indie company. They were a very well-known company in European regions, almost as powerful as Gremlin or Codemasters. They were very important. So to lose money on a product because an institution didn't like you using their logo, that's kind of petty, but I can see why. I guess it doesn't matter though, because they did re-release the game without the logo, and to my knowledge, it still sold very well in England. Take that, you fucking nerds. You know what? This list has been somewhat tame. Let's get kinky, and by kinky I mean BDSM, and by BDSM I mean a fighting game, and by a fighting game I mean one of the worst fucking fighting game ever thought about. Thrillkill. This game is an anomaly. It's a fighting game, but all the characters are BDSM characters. You can choose excellent protagonists with riveting storylines like Tormentor, Cletus, Oddball, The Imp, Belladonna. It's insane that this game was supposed to be a weird sports game, which was translated to a kink fest of violence, to a game that would have been the first to get the adults only rating, to being canceled altogether. And in some weird twist of fate, they still managed to make a game out of it. And that game is known as Wu-Tang Shaolin Style. Protect your neck, right? Also protect your ass, because Cletus is coming for it. Our final game today is Kingpin Life of Crime by Xatrix Entertainment, a company you might know for Redneck Rampage, Quake 2's Mission Pack The Reckoning, or what they did when they rebranded to Grey Matter Studios, namely Return to Castle Wolfenstein, which I consider to be a fine game, and Call of Duty United Offensive. As Xatrix though, this was their last game. It was a gritty, in-your-face, explicit, of the time kind of shooter, where violence in games is almost the new norm. Much like Doom, another game known for causing panic among parents, this game also caused a panic in its own way. It didn't help that the unfortunate events at Columbine High School were very much still on the minds of parents and teachers across the US. Unfortunately, Kingpin was the first major FPS that had a budget that mattered since the shooting, and due to that reaction from parents, many consumer goods stores didn't sell it. You wouldn't find this at Best Buy, Babbage's, Funko Land, EB Games, Toys R Us, so that basically screwed Xatrix, and that sucks, because the game really isn't that bad, it was just the world's response to current events that kind of pushed it down. And that's it for today's episode. What did you think of this list? Are there any controversial moments that stick out to you in video gaming history? Feel free to let the community know down in the comments section below. Speaking of our community, if you made it to the end of this episode, you're already home with us. We're a gathering of video game enthusiasts that love to remember when life was just a little bit easier to live. And if you align with that, feel free to subscribe. Finally, the single most important thing you can do for me is to hit that thumbs up button, as it directly impacts the visibility of the videos and the projects that I work on every single day. As always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes. Fortifier out.